Last week we talked about food chains and food webs. Today we're going to talk about other relationships for survival. We're going to start with symbiosis. Symbiosis means a close and permanent relationship between two species. And so today we're going to talk about the three types of symbiosis: mutualism, commensalism, and the final one is parasitism. Mutualism is when both organisms benefit. Okay, that means they're both helped by this relationship. An excellent example of mutualism is this relationship between the bees, the pollinators, and the flowers. The bees get nectar or food from the flowers, and the flowers get their pollen spread by the bees, so they both benefit, they're both helped. So for my mutualism example, I would say bees, which are pollinators, and flowers. The bees get food from the flowers. They get nectar from the flowers. So it's a positive relationship for the bees, or a smiley face for the bees. The flowers, the bees spread pollen for the flowers. So that's a positive relationship for the flowers. So in mutualism, it's a relationship where both species benefit. Both species are happy. Smiley face, smiley face. Commensalism is our second example of symbiosis. Commensalism is when, I'll draw a line here, one organism benefits and one organism is not affected. So we call this a one organism benefits smiley face. One organism just doesn't care. It doesn't affect the organism. An excellent example of this, barnacles on a whale. So here's the whale's tail. Here's a whale. You guys know I can't draw. Okay. These barnacles live on the tail. The barnacles get a home, and they get food as they move around the ocean, so they're happy about it. And the whale doesn't even notice them. The whale doesn't even care. So commensalism is our second example of symbiosis. Our third example of symbiosis is parasitism. Parasitism is when one organism benefits and one organism is harmed. A good example is a tick on a dog. The dog, I can't draw, as you guys know. The dog does not like having the tick on it. So here's the tick sucking blood from the dog. Okay. The tick is happy because it gets blood to suck. But this makes the dog unhappy. It doesn't kill the dog, but it makes the dog sick. So parasitism is when one organism benefits and one organism is harmed. There's a lot of really cool examples of parasitism. So mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism are all examples of symbiosis. Another relationship we can talk about is predation. Predation is when one organism benefits and one organism is killed. Okay, so predation is when the predator eats the prey. So the difference between parasitism and predation is in parasitism, the organism is harmed but doesn't die. In predation, the predator kills and eats the prey. And a good example is the Arctic hare and the Canadian lynx. The lynx eats the hare. And this is a really interesting graph. You see time here, and population size here. You can see, okay, the pink line is the lynx. And you can see the purple line is the hare. As the hare population increases, there's more food, so then the predator, the lynx population increases. But as the lynx population increases, they eat a lot of hares, so the hares start to die off, so then the lynx start to die off. When there's not as many lynx, the hare population can increase again, which allows the lynx to eat more and have more babies, so their population increases. So there's a relationship between this predator, this is the predator, the amount of predator, and the amount of prey. And this is a common predator-prey graph you'll see. Our final relationship we'll talk about is competition. This is when organisms compete or fight over food, water, space, and sometimes mates. So for example, you could have two male lions fighting over the female lions. That could be your example for competition there. So let's do our summary table. At this point, I'd like you to pause the video and see if you can fill out this chart on your own. Okay, the smiley faces are happy, the neutral faces they don't care, and the sad faces they're unhappy. Try to fill this out, and then restart the video, and then check my answers. So, hopefully you've tried to fill this out, and now we'll check our answers. Mutualism is when both organisms benefit. So organism 1 is happy, and organism 2 is happy. They both benefit. Commensalism is when one organism benefits, one organism just doesn't care. Parasitism is when one organism benefits, and the other organism is harmed. Predation is when one organism benefits, and the other one is not only harmed, but it dies. Competition, neither organism benefits, because even if one of the male lion wins, it's probably injured from the fight. So from after this, you're going to do some practice problems on symbiosis to go with these notes. So after you do the practice problems on symbiosis, you'll do these notes on cycles in nature. A cycle is a repeating circular movement of matter through an ecosystem. And we witness this all of the time. All the time in nature you see rain and water moving in a creek and snow, and you might see an ocean. This is the movement of water in an ecosystem. You see clouds. So we're going to look at some examples of cycles. The first one is the water cycle. In the water cycle, we have evaporation of water out of oceans and streams. We have condensation as the water forms clouds. We have precipitation as water falls back to earth as rain or snow or sleet. Okay? We have infiltration as water goes into the ground. Okay? We have water running down the surface. Okay? And this is runoff. We have groundwater, underwater water. But you can see it's a big cycle that continues. How do humans affect the water cycle? Well, we pollute waterways with trash, too many nutrients from fertilizer. We can help when we plant trees to prevent erosion, and when we help clean our water. We have plants that help clean the water, and we can pick up trash. So that's one cycle in nature. The next cycle example we're going to talk about is the carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is the movement of carbon, right, as a gas like carbon dioxide. It can be moved as glucose. It can be moved as fossil fuels. This is all the movement of carbon. So let's see. What puts carbon dioxide in the air? We can look at this picture. Well, power plants put carbon dioxide into the air. Deforestation puts carbon dioxide into the air. Driving our cars puts carbon dioxide into the air. Respiration puts carbon dioxide into the air. So some of these things we can help, and some of these things we can't help. So we can say respiration. We need to do respiration to breathe and to make sugar, so we can't stop that. But burning fossil fuels also puts carbon dioxide into the air, and we don't necessarily need to burn all those fossil fuels. While we're in quarantine right now, we're reducing the amount of emissions from vehicles, and it's actually making the air a lot cleaner. What takes carbon dioxide out of the air? The ocean takes up some carbon dioxide. When it takes up too much carbon dioxide, it can lead to coral bleaching and ocean acidification. But the main thing that takes carbon dioxide out of the air is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the #1 thing that takes carbon dioxide out of the air. It's the most important thing. Okay? So the main thing that takes carbon dioxide out of the air is photosynthesis, but also ocean uptake. How do humans affect the carbon cycle? By burning fossil fuels, by driving cars and factories and power plants, by cutting down trees, this returns too much carbon dioxide, okay, to the air. We don't want this. These are bad ways. Positive ways is we can plant trees, and that really helps. The third and final cycle we'll talk about is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is important. We use nitrogen for our proteins and our DNA, so it's super important to build new cells. What organism takes nitrogen from the air? So 78% of the air is actually made up of nitrogen. But we can't use that gassy nitrogen. We need it in solid form. The #1 organism that takes nitrogen out of the air is bacteria. And they put it in soil for us to use. These are so important. How do humans affect the nitrogen cycle? We add too much nitrogen fertilizer. We add this when we farm, but most importantly, people add this when they grow grass to make their grass greener. So if you can stop using nitrogen fertilizer in your grass, that can really, really help the earth. So bacteria take nitrogen out of the air, and then plants use it to make their proteins and their DNA. And when animals eat plants, that's how they get their nitrogen. So that's very important. So that's the end of the notes on the cycles. Now you're going to do practice problems on them. Good luck, and feel free to ask questions in class.